everyone, my name is Leanne and today I am bringing you what is possibly my biggest ever book haul. It is what it is. I do have excuses or reasons, probably closer to excuses, but it is the first month that I've worked in publishing and that alone is not my excuse. My excuse is we are moving offices and are therefore having a massive clear out. There have been a lot of books floating around that we could just take, and therefore I did. I also live next to a really good book swap, and I've also received books from other publishers as well. So I'm gonna split this book haul into two parts. Part one, I'm gonna talk about all of the adult fiction, and in part two, I'm gonna talk about the rest. So non-fiction, poetry, and YA and kids. We've got a lot of books to get through, so I'm just gonna jump into it. The first book is The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society by Mary Ann Schaefer and Annie Barrows. I've heard a lot of good things about this book. It was one that did the rounds when the film came out, maybe last year. And recently I heard Aoife from Fred Weasley Died Laughing talking about this book, and I always really trust her recommendations. All I really know about this book is that it is about a writer who is exchanging letters with someone, and it's about a secret society, and it is about the German occupation of Guernsey. I think the word I hear associated with this book the most is delightful, and I could definitely do with a book like that in my life right now. Next, I have a proof copy of Bunny by Mona Awad. This book came out last month, I think, and I've heard a few people talking about this, but I haven't heard a huge amount of hype about it. This is a campus novel. It's set in America, and it is about a graduate student who is drawn to this very rich, tight-knit group of girls who call themselves the Bunnies. The Bunnies do something called a smut salon, and I don't exactly know what that is, but it definitely intrigues me. I've heard this is a very strange book, but I love stories that are about the complexities and nuances and intricacies of very intense female friendships. So I think this is one that is definitely going to be up my street. Next, I have The Roundhouse by Louise Erdrich. This is a novel that has been on my radar for quite a while now. It is set in America, and it looks at what happens when a mother is raped, and it looks at the aftermath of that and how she refuses to talk to anyone about it, and how the men in her life, so her husband and also her, I say men, he's a child, her 13-year-old son Joe, they begin to take things into their own hands in different ways. Joe is really grappling with his confusion and his anger in the whole situation, and it follows him being prematurely pushed into a very unfair and unjust adult world. Sounds like it's definitely going to be an intense one, and one you have to be in the right headspace to be able to handle, but I'm really interested in this kind of thing. Next, I have another proof copy. This is Expectations by Anna Hope. This one came out on the 11th of July, and it's another one that deals with female friendships. It looks at three girls and the intense friendship between the three of them. They are interested in art and activism and romance, but it also looks at them 10 years later when their lives haven't exactly panned out how they expected. They have flailing careers and faltering marriages, and the three of them envy each other and want what each other have. There are so many things going on in this book that I'm really drawn to. There is, of course, that female friendship. There's the aspect of activism in it. And it's the idea of your life not quite panning out how you expected and grappling with your career and motherhood, womanhood. I am just super excited to get to this one. Next up, I have The Woman Who Stole My Life by Marian Keyes. I read my first Marian Keyes novel back in March for the Irish Readathon, and I completely adored it. So I have really wanted to pick up more of her books, and she has such a broad backlist that I am now going to be able to enjoy. This is about a married Dublin mother named Stella who one day is sat in traffic and she collides with someone in a Range Rover. As a result of this, she meets a handsome man who would like to give her his phone number, but she thinks he's arrogant and dismisses this. But little does she know, this encounter is going to absolutely change her life. As I said, I am super intrigued by Marion Key's writing. I know I have so many incredible stories left to explore from her. I do just feel really fortunate that I have discovered her writing now, and I do have this big backlist that I can now appreciate. Next, I have The Ice Palace by Tarjei Vesaas. This is a Penguin modern classic, and it is a Norwegian classic. Again, another book that is about female friendship. It is about the friendship between two young schoolgirls. There is a frozen waterfall in the Norwegian fjords, which school children have nicknamed the Ice Palace. And it follows what happens when one of the girls in this friendship decides she wants to explore the Ice Palace by herself and she never returns. And it is about the other girl dealing with the aftermath and grief of that. I adore the cover of this book as well. I think it's absolutely stunning, and I think the whole concept for this book is completely fascinating. And with it being a modern classic, I think it's one that is definitely going to be fantastic. Next, I have a short story collection. This is How to Love a Jamaican by Alexia Arthurs. This is a book about Jamaican immigrants, about their lives in their new homes, but also their connections to their families back home. There are a breadth of different locations in this book, spanning from small island communities to New York City. I've not read a huge amount of fiction from this part of the world before, and I have heard a lot of good reviews from this one, and again, it is one that has an absolutely stunning cover. And I'm always on the look for a new short story collection to pick up, so I'm really looking forward to this one. Next up, I have Oreo by Fran Ross. This was originally published in the 1970s, and it is a work of postmodern feminist satire, which makes me sound a lot more intelligent than I am. This is about a 14-year-old girl named Oreo who was born to a Jewish father and a black mother. She has never known her father, and when she is 14, she decides to set off in search of him. She begins to explore New York City in search of her father, but it sets her on a journey of self-discovery. This is meant to be a book that was really ahead of its time, and I think the whole concept of it is just absolutely fascinating. It's one that has been on my radar for quite a while, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what exactly I make of this one. Next, I have Acts of Infidelity by Lena Anderson. This is a book about an affair. It is about the relationship between a character named Esther and an actor named Olaf. She falls madly in love with him, but finds out that he has a wife that he has absolutely no intention of leaving. But he's also not objecting to the situation that he's got going on with Esther. Esther is convinced that she can get him to change. As their relationship continues and continues, she is faced with the fact that she has become a mistress. I love a book that is about messy, complicated relationship. And I actually think this is translated from possibly German by Saskia Vogel. I think this is translated from German. That explains why they call Esther and Olaf. Next, I have The Man Who Didn't Call by Rosie Walsh. I am so excited for this book, and as I keep saying, 2019 is the year that I'm properly getting into rom-coms. This is about what happens to our protagonist when she spends 7 glorious days getting to know a man and falling in love. He tells her that he is going on a long booked holiday, but he will phone her from the airport, but he doesn't. The friends of our protagonist are convinced that he was just a bit of a dick, that he has ghosted her, but she definitely feels like there's something more going on here, that something must have happened to him, and it follows on from there. As I said, 2019, gonna be the year of the rom-com, and the whole concept of this book I just feel very connected to. Next, I have another short story collection. I have Heads of the Coloured People by Nafissa Thompson Spires, and obviously I am just using the word coloured because it is in the title of the book. This is a debut collection of short stories that interrogates what is apparently a post-racial era. It explores the violence, both external and self-inflicted, faced by Black Americans. Again, I'm always on the search for fantastic short story collections, and I think short story collections are brilliant ways to experience new voices, and I've never read anything from this writer before, so I'm really intrigued to see what I think of their writing. Next, I have The Braid by Letitia Colombani. This is a book that is about the connection between 3 women that seem like they would have no connection. They live 3 different lives on 3 different continents. It seems like they have nothing in common, but what binds them together is their display of courage and their determination in the face of adversity. The book is set in India, Sicily, and Canada, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see those 3 different locations in one book. I think this is going to be a really powerful one. Next, I have Everything Under by Daisy Johnson, and this was shortlisted for the Man Booker Prize 2018. I'm going to be completely honest with you, there's not an awful lot I can tell you about this book. I don't really know much about it. I know it has something to do with lexicography, I know it's quite literary, and I know it is in some way a Greek myth retelling. But beyond that, I don't really know, but I have heard a lot of positive thoughts about this one, so my interest is definitely piqued. Next, I have Return to Wonderland, and this is an anthology of short stories all inspired by Lewis Carroll's Alice novels. So there are a bunch of different writers included in here. We have Amy Wilson, Lisa Thompson, Patrice Lawrence, Chris Smith, just to name a few of them. You may be aware I am obsessed with Alice in Wonderland. I love all the sort of iconography of it. I absolutely adored doing an in-depth analysis of it when I was at university. I love the Disney films. The book is one of my absolute favourite books ever. I just adore the Alice novels, so obviously I wanted to pick this one. All of these stories are in some way inspired by the original novels, and I think most or some of them actually revisit Wonderland, hence the title, and explore what has happened to these characters since we met them in the original novels. I'm Alice obsessed, so I'm definitely gonna love this one. I already know I am. And the final novel I have to talk to you guys about today is A Nearly Normal Family by M.T. Edwardson. This is a thriller, which is a little bit unusual for me, but the idea behind this book is just so interesting. It follows what happens when a young girl is accused of murder, and one of her parents thinks she is hiding something, and another one of her parents thinks she has been framed. And I believe the structure of this book is really interesting because you have those 3 perspectives, the mother, the father, and the daughter, but rather than flicking between those 3 perspectives, you get them individually, so one after the other. And I think the idea is you reevaluate what you've heard from the previous perspective based on new information you have when you get it from a different perspective. Apparently it is a real page turner, so I'm very excited for this one. So that's it. They are all the books that I'm going to talk to you guys about today, and as ever they will be linked down below in the description. Leave me a comment if you have read any of these books and let me know what you thought of them, or if your interest in any of them has been piqued after hearing me talk about them. Do let me know as well. I always love hearing all of your thoughts on anything that I've spoken about in my videos. Do keep your eyes peeled for part 2 of this book haul, where, as I said, I'm going to be talking about the poetry, non-fiction, kids, and YA. Anyways, I hope you guys are having a brilliant week, and I will talk to you in my next video.